What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Act Dennis,
Hello.
Shaheen Hill. Oh, now you want to say hello. Go ahead, say hello to the people.
Hi, people.
So yeah, this is episode 21 of our movie and series review episodes that we're doing live on X with the people, covering all the new movies, old movies, different genres, different nationalities. Doesn't matter where it comes from. We're going to try to watch all the cinema. And this is a movie that's been on my list for a while since I heard about it. The Book of Clarence, the 2024 film starring Lakeith Stanfield, directed by James Samuel. I believe he's British, or he was an artist from Britain who's now a filmographer. He made the movie The Harder They Fall with Idris Elba and Lakeith Stanfield, and this is his second feature-length film. It was also produced by Jay-Z, and yeah, it was a wild movie, 2 hours long, but we just finished watching it about 30 minutes ago, and I have to say I really, really, really loved it, really enjoyed it. What did you think of the movie after we finished watching it?
After we finished watching it, I was like, whoa, like I was not expecting to shed a tear at the end. And it was very interesting. Like the concept was interesting and it left me thinking about like certain topics. So I enjoyed it overall.
Right, right. So this is a good time to say that AKDI is now a Christian.
No, no. And that's the funny part because I don't like religious movies, but this movie didn't make me cringe.
hmm Now, we did watch one religious movie before, I believe. We watched The Passion of the Christ. And how did you feel about The Passion of the Christ? Very briefly.
I mean, that was for me, it was more like a historical movie rather than religious. At least that's how I viewed it, because in my head, like all of these religious like figures, messiahs, and all of those people are sort of like historical figures for me and really nothing more. Sorry if you're religious, but that's just how I view them.
Right.
So that was like more historical. But when I say I don't like religious movies, I meant like I don't like movies that sort of message or hint to you that, oh, become Muslim or become Christian or stuff like that. Like they make it seem so like holy and pure. I don't really vibe with that. But I
hmm
didn't feel like that in this movie. And yes, there were some like messaging like that, but it just didn't make me feel weird.
Yeah, I mean, The Passion of the Christ definitely has an overt religious message. Like, you should be Christian. Look at what Jesus went through. You should
Yeah.
believe in him. But I believe The Passion of the Christ overall is a great film for, just its cinematography, how they make the story feel so alive, and also the torture scenes in it. It's one of the great slasher horror movies, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
what this review is not about The Passion of the Christ. This is about The Book of Clarence, which I believe right now is one of my favorite films to come out in 2024. We have a bunch of other movies that are important for 2024, but this is one of them. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. So the Book of Clarence takes place back in like AD 33, like, around the time Jesus was alive, and it takes place in Jerusalem. But they actually shot the movie in like Italy, like southern Italy. I believe the city's name is Matera. And the movie opens with these two guys on a chariot racing, right? And there's like a homeless man in front of them. The homeless man is like begging for money. He's so dirty. His whole body is black. His hair is disgusting. You can't tell what race he is or anything like that. And the guys who are on the chariot, which are Clarence and his homeboy Elijah, are like, get out the way, get out the way, Dumbleborts or Dumblebats. I forgot exactly what they said. They had a certain word they used in this movie the entire time to call people stupid. And they're about to lose the race to this girl who's racing in another chariot, and she's like blowing past them. Right? They run through this whole race through this very Mediterranean city, and eventually they lose, right, to this girl because they got stopped by that homeless man. And now the two guys are like, oh, we're asked out. We lost the money. We lost the bet. What are we gonna do? Stuff like that. What did you think about like the opening scene of this movie?
Uh, it was like, I don't know, it was like sort of, it started lively. So it wasn't like a regular start. I also like movies with chapters. And this also started with a chapter. And I believe the chapter's name was 13th Apostle, right? And which was funny, like to begin with. So I don't know, it was okay. It was, I don't know, it was it was cool. Like I didn't put too much thought into it, but I was just like imagining, sort of like how it's kind of like a reflection of today.
hmm
Because if you think about it, I don't know, like chariot rides or races would be probably like car or sports car races today where people just like go out in the middle of the night and race them and stuff like that.
Right, right. Yeah, the movie, maybe there's not a lot to break apart with that scene, but I really like how they sort of bring you into this world with the costumes, with the horses and the chariots and stuff like that, and the wide camera angles of this, what's supposed to be Jerusalem with all these houses stacked up on top of hills, these clay-looking houses, and also like the movie has sort of like a, how can I say, like black exploitation film, like the movie, like that movie Kill Heidi. Remember that Swiss film we
Yeah.
watched? Like how the camera is sort of like zoomed in on certain parts, very strange, like you don't see in most movies today. So that's like a style of movie that's called like black exploitation films, where they had those sort of weird camera angles. And I forgot, I skipped over this part that they didn't lose the race because they got stopped by the homeless man. They lost the race because they were attacked by gypsies, right? They were attacked by these little people, or these little kids who were supposed to be the gypsies of the community. So they're running through this community, and people throw stones at them, hit them with darts and stuff like that, and they fall out of the chariots. And it's a very like realistic scene when they fall out of the chariots, because the camera is like attached to them. So like when Clarence falls out of the chariot, it looks like you're falling out, right? You feel what he sees. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it
it's super
definitely
cool.
didn't feel fake.
Hmm.
Like it's really felt like they were actually racing around in chariots.
Mm. And another thing about this movie, right? So when it first opens, like, it takes place in this Middle Eastern setting, but everybody is black, right? And I really thought it was funny how, like, they said they're in the gypsy community, but then everybody comes out who are supposed to be the gypsies, and
Hmm.
they're black too. Which I feel like is
Yeah,
like a hint at like how ridiculous like racism and ethnicism is over people. Because, like, in my opinion, like, gypsies are white folks, right? In my
yeah.
opinion, this is just my opinion though. This might be a controversial opinion, but nobody's going to distinguish. Oh, you're not black, you're gypsy, right? If gypsies were black people, so it's the same thing in this movie. That's how I felt about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like traditionally, stereotypically, I'll say not traditionally, stereotypically, what people like assume gypsies to be is like a bit darker skin, like Middle Easterns or Arabs, you
Hmm.
know. So it doesn't really like, and now today everyone is mixed. Like, so you would have a gypsy who's blonde and blue eyed. So you can't really make that distinction today, which is um, even dumber today
Yeah.
to sort of like do that sort of discrimination.
Right, right. And plus, I got to say, the gypsy leader, his name was a kid called Cabbage, and I
Yeah,
wish I wish Cabbage actually had more scenes in this movie because he was like really funny, like as like this little kid who's leading these band of gypsies who rob people and stuff like that. So I wish after Cabbage robbed Clarence and Elijah of their clothes, he had more roles because he's actually really funny as a character in my opinion.
yeah, and he's actually a kid, so that's a good acting skills.
Definitely. All right. So moving on after that, we find out that Clarence and Elijah are like, local, how can I say this? Not bums, but they're like street dudes. You know what I mean? Like they sell something called tumbleweed, which is basically like marijuana for them in this time. And basically they hustle all the time in the streets, just trying to get money however they can. And the reason they were in this chariot race is because like they borrowed some money from this guy whose name is Jedediah the Terrible. And he's like the kingpin of the city, right? He's the king of the underlord. And because they lost the chariot race to the woman who was actually Mary Magdalene, played by Tiana Taylor, they now they're asked out. They're going to get killed because they were supposed to get the money back in 30 days, and now they're like very close to the deadline and stuff like that. And so they're figuring out ways to do it. They're running through the city like selling weed and stuff like that. And Clarence is like, what, whatever. Let's just go see Jedediah. And they make it to his harem, right? They pulled up to his harem, which is full of like exotic dancers and stuff like that. And there's a blue lady dancing. And I before I even like how can I say this? I remember that blue lady from The Harder They Fall, and I think this is going to be James Samuel's like constant. How can I say characteristic in his movie? Like something he'll always put into his movies. That's
Yeah,
what I
his
feel like.
signature.
Yeah, his signature and stuff like that. But yeah, they pull up to Jedediah's house, and Jedediah is played by a big Nigerian who's speaking like pidgin English and saying, "You will get my money, nigga. You will get my money." And
Wow.
that was like the first Nigerian accent, which there is a lot of in this movie. But what did you think about like that part when they pulled up to Jedediah's crib?
Yeah, it was. I was like, at the first time I saw the blue lady, I was like, what is this? Like, how come there's a blue lady there? And yeah, and then I mean, obviously, it looked aesthetically pleasing because she was dancing and she was like bending and stuff like that. So and then afterwards, when you told me like, when you reminded me this was in the other movie as well, I was like, oh, like that's kind of clever and that's kind of like unique. So I like that little like signature of his.
Hmm.
But also, I think like before they come to there, also we meet the 12 apostles
Oh
because they're like
yeah.
walking around the city like gangsters
Hmm.
and I mean not gangsters but they're just like the cool kids, I guess. I don't know. And we see that like Clarence's brother, twin brother, is one of them, and we also like kind of understand that Clarence is not a believer. He
Hmm.
kind of like thinks it's like all a sham and he doesn't really believe it and stuff like that. And then we also meet Clarence's mother because he stops by his own house
Hmm.
before he goes to the Jedida, the terrible house, or wherever. And yeah, we kind of see that like he's not really, talking to his brother. He doesn't have any relationships to his brother. So yeah, there was like definitely a lot in that like first couple of scenes in the movie to get
Yeah.
from the character.
I have to say, Lakeith Stanfield did a standout, amazing job playing two different characters in one movie because I feel like there is a distinct difference between Thomas's character and also Clarence's character too. And when they first interact with each other, like Thomas is using like a British accent, and of course Clarence is using like his American accent and stuff like that. And I think he pulled off both well. And the
Hmm.
reason he has beef with Thomas, his brother, is because Thomas left his mother when she was about to die and joined Jesus. And Clarence, on the other hand, stayed with his mother, but he never believed in God. And so Thomas is like, I'm not gonna associate with a brother who doesn't believe in God. And Clarence is like, what is believing in God if you don't even believe in your own mother, if you can't even be there for your own mother and stuff like that. So there
Yeah.
is that sort of like tension between them when they see each other and stuff like that. And when I first saw the apostles come into the scene, I thought they were going to be Jews. I thought they were going to be like the Pharisees because in every movie about Jesus, they always bring the Jews into it. But I have to say, and if you're waiting for this in the review, there are no Jews in the movie, which I think is actually a really good thing because too many people make movies about Jesus and then you can get the message that the Jews killed Jesus or that they were a part of it. You get what I'm saying? But there are none of
Hmm.
that. There's none of that in the movie, which I think is actually a breath of fresh air in the story. So
Yeah, yeah. That was a good like decision I think that they
mhm.
made. But I do have to say like up like in these first, I would say like maybe first 20 to 30 minutes, maybe not 30, but like 20 minutes, I did feel like it was sort of like a goofy Hollywood movie a little bit. Maybe that's just me. Like, that movie with that movie High School with Wiz Khalifa and stuff like that. You know that movie?
Hmm.
Like how that movie is fun, right? But it's also like, just goofy, and you watch it just like, because it's silly. And it did feel like that to me in the beginning. Like I didn't really take it that seriously, but my opinion changed afterwards.
Right, right. I feel like I didn't know what to expect going into this movie. I kind of thought it was going to be drama with some action because of the chariot race at the beginning. But I feel like if at the beginning of the movie, actually we skipped this part. The very, very, very first thing you see when the movie starts is Clarence crucified along with several other people who are crucified. So we sort
Mm,
of know how the movie's going to end. He's going to die, similar to like any movie about Jesus, right? Like Jesus is going to die in the movie, but it's just how you tell the story.
yeah,
So we knew it was going to have a dramatic ending, but I thought there was going to be a lot more action in it, which there was a lot of action, but also a lot of comedy too. Very good
yeah.
genre crossing, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, there were like a lot of emotions that I went through. Like it was funny, it was dramatic, it was like at certain points it made me want to cry. It was like also action at some parts. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Also, one more thing before we go past this. One of the things that Clarence's mother tells him is to hold space. Like faith is something else, but you have to hold space. And we get the feeling that Clarence, the entire time of the movie, doesn't want to be a nobody. He doesn't want to be forgotten. He doesn't want to be somebody that is just seen as another loser in the streets. He wants to have meaning in his life. And so his mother tells him hold space, which means be somebody. And his mother always has faith in him, which is similar to like how Mary always had faith in Jesus. Mary always believed Jesus was the Messiah. Jesus was the
Yeah.
truth. And so that's sort of the connection I saw there with how his mother talked to him and how we know Mary talked to Jesus.
Yeah, definitely like his mother, Clarence's mother was like that sort of lady that was just like nice to everyone.
Yeah.
And she was like, even though like her other son left her, she was like, he's following his own dreams, and I still love him. So it
Right,
was like, yeah, she did feel holy
right,
in
right.
a sense.
And what did you think about Elijah, Clarence's homie, the guy who was with him generally through thick and thin? Because I thought he
Yeah.
was actually a really good like sidekick throughout the movie. What did you think?
Yeah, yeah, he was, because he was always like, I am your brother, because like I'll go anywhere with you, I'll die for you, whatever. Like he was a dope sidekick,
Right,
and
right.
he was just like down with whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, he was played by a guy named R.J. Kyler, and he did a very good job. I would say, very good job
Yeah,
of bringing that character to life. So yeah, Clarence pulls up to Jedediah's crib. Jedediah says, basically, you have like 30 more days to get all my money, which is a lot of silver coins and stuff like that. So yeah, Clarence leaves with Elijah, and they go get high. And I thought the scene when they got high, when they were smoking some weed at the like shisha house, was like
yeah,
kind of was really cool because this is the cool thing about James Samuel's direction. Like, there's a lot of fantasy in his stories, which sort of brings you from reality to a different world. You get what I'm saying? And yeah. By the way, Violator jumped into the comments. He left a very good comment. He said, "Why would anyone blame the Jews for killing Jesus? He was a Palestinian Jew." Thank you, Violator. Absolute truth. Big facts, big facts. I love Violator. He's always speaking truth. But yeah, the scene when they were getting high at the shisha house was really cool because the people were like floating. They were like doing backflips. There was a cool Jay-Z song speaking in the background too. I like that scene. What did you think of
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, at first when I saw people floating, I was like, wait, is Jesus here? Is he making
that?
like these people float and stuff like that? And then I was like, oh wait, they're high, like they're literally high.
Hmm.
So that was like it was kind of like a dad joke,
Hmm.
but it was cool, like, and then Clarence started to fly and Elijah started to fly and stuff like that. Like that scene did turn out to be like cute, sort of, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, I liked it. I really liked it, and
Yeah.
I really like how weed is sort of like in the background of this entire movie because, like, in random scenes, like Elijah is like getting high,
Yeah,
like
he's
he's
always
smoke,
getting high.
he's always getting high. Like every time they roll somewhere in the little taxi cab pulled by the donkey, like they're smoking in the back, chilling. And I feel like the movie is like a reimagining of like rolling through the hood today with your homies in the car hotboxing, but like in ancient times, Jesus times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely felt that. Like when they entered Jedidah the Terrible's like in, I was like, oh, now they're at the strip club and all of that stuff. Like, it was definitely like that relatability between like today's, I guess, black culture a little bit, and
Hmm.
then like back then they kind of like just, I don't know how to say that, but they kind of like rolled that into that story.
Right, right. Because I think they're trying. I think James Samuel or whoever wrote the movie was trying to make the comparison. Like the way poor people live today is the way Jesus's people lived. Because we always have to remember Jesus was a poor guy from like an oppressed colonial state. You get what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah,
of course, Jesus probably was rolling around with his homies, getting high, smoking tumbleweed or whatever.
and
But
smoking hashish.
smoking hashish, smoking big hashish.
Probably, I mean, hashish was smoked like since Mesopotamia, so I don't know.
Jesus was coming up with crazy ideas while high, like do unto others what you want done unto you.
Wow, you're gonna get canceled.
And now going forward or backwards, I forgot exactly. But so Clarence is like scared of Jedediah, and he says, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get saved. I'm going to run to religion." So he goes to meet John the Baptist, and John,
Sorry.
yeah,
Also,
yeah.
before that, we did also see the scene where he meets the girl that he loves.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. So we have to remember, like Clarence is motivated to do everything he loves because he's in love with this girl named Valeria, something like that, right?
Varinia, Varinia.
Varinia, sorry. So Clarence is in love with actually Jedediah's sister. So the guy he owes money to, the big gangster, he is in love with her sister, and he thinks she's perfect and stuff like that. She's the only one that pronounces his name right because everybody else in the movie calls him Clarence, Clarence, and I think, but she pronounces his name Clarence, right? And I believe she works at the like hair salon, like she's a
Yeah,
cosmetologist or something like that.
yeah, I think so. I think it was the hair salon.
Yeah. And so yeah, they have like a cute romance. There's a scene when she's like, "Why do you like me?" And he's like, "Because every time I look in your eyes, they burn blue, and every time you look in mine, they burn red," or something like that. It was very cute. What did you think about their romance and their chemistry?
Yeah, it definitely felt like very innocent, and it felt like, she was also into him, but she was like, I can't marry you because you're like a bum, and like I want to marry you, but you need to get a real job so I can marry you. She
Hmm.
was kind of like that, but I think like she did see the good in him, or like the
Hmm.
potential in him, because she was also like, flirting with him and stuff like that. But that
Yeah.
was definitely like cute, like, they
Hmm.
had a cute chemistry.
Yeah, definitely. Very cute chemistry. Seems like I don't know the girl's name who played her, but she was a very good actress because she shows
Anna,
up a lot.
Anna
Anna
Diop.
Diop.
I
Okay,
don't
so
know.
all right, another I believe Nigerian actress. A lot of Nigerians were in the movie, but all of them did a standout job. Going to jump to the comment from Violator. He says Christians don't know that they worship a brown Palestinian who is living under occupation and colonialism. Big facts, and I think that's a very very good point, Violator. And I think this movie does a good job of reminding us about the poverty and the oppression that Jesus came from, his people came from, and what the true message of Christianity is. I'm not a Christian, but I still admire Jesus a lot, and I do believe Jesus existed, and he was a great man, and I do believe he was a prophet too. So I think this movie is a great reminder of the ideas that Jesus tried to teach the world, honestly. And
Yeah, that also like the real enemy, the colonial powers
mhm. And
as
it doesn't
well.
even have to be like colonial powers. It can just be any system that is oppressing people, any
Yeah,
system that is over people, right? Because Jesus' message was like the least of us should have the most, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And so he shows up and tries to talk to Varinia. Her name is Varinia, right?
yeah.
He tries to convince Varinia to like give him some money to pay back her brother or to get her
No,
brother. Yes, he
he
does.
no, he says like, I'm gonna convert to Christianity, so tell your brother that, so maybe he'll give me some slack or
Okay,
something like
okay.
that. He doesn't ask her for money.
Okay, okay, yeah, you're right, you're right. Okay, so he asked Verinia, tell your brother chill. I'm going to become a Christian, and so he can't hurt me. So he goes to see John the Baptist, who is played by another Nigerian actor, David Oyelowo, who I believe played Martin Luther King in Selma. He's been in a lot of big movies, right? David Oyelowo has been in a lot of big movies, but in this movie he has a minor role. But I believe he has one of the funniest performances because Clarence tries to go see John the Baptist, the guy who baptized Jesus, the guy who basically was a prophet before Jesus, and John the Baptist is like, Clarence, we know you. You are a thief. You are a liar. You are a scammer. And you want me to baptize you so you can be a good man and get Jedediah off of your back. And then he slaps him.
Yeah, that was funny.
It was hilarious. No, it was so hilarious because this movie it finds a way to make the prophets funny because we think about John the Baptist, Jesus, Muhammad, Moses as like these very unfunny guys. But this movie does a good job on making them funny, but not making fun of them, if that makes sense.
Also like very like humanizing them as well, because yeah, Jesus might be God or the son of God or whatever, but all of these men that followed him were humans like us. So
Hmm.
of course they joked around, or they lied, or they did something bad, or they judged people and whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that also, is a part of the humor as well. It
Yeah.
humanizes them.
Yeah, definitely. Matt Villainy just jumped into the chat. Shout out to Matt Villainy. He said, I'm here, but I guess I should watch this first. So, Matt Villainy, I'll just say we're going to have spoilers. We're walking through the entire like story. So, if you don't want any spoilers, maybe you should tune out. But if you just want to enjoy the conversation and you don't mind spoilers, then stick around because there's a lot to say about this movie. This is actually a really, really great movie. I really enjoyed it. And I think there's a lot to break down, and AKDI and I are going to do that. So, yeah, John the Baptist like slaps him. And, Clarence keeps on trying to tell him, no, I really want to do this. I might not believe in God, but help me out. And, yeah, John the Baptist tries to like almost drown him. He puts his head underwater, and his homie Elijah has to save him. His homie Elijah is like, "Hey, bro, get off my homie, man!" And they almost get into a fight. I thought that was really funny. But one of the interesting things about this movie, one theme about this movie, I think is a really big deal, is that religious people try to gatekeep religion. And so when people say, "I want to be a Christian, I want to be a Muslim," but then the people who are Muslims are Christians, whatever, they say, "No, you can't join. You're not perfect enough. You're not righteous enough. You're not clean enough, like I am," which is a constant thing that happens to Clarence because you would think somebody saying, "I want to follow Jesus," everybody would have been, "Oh yeah, come on in." But the people are like, "No, no, no, you're not good enough." What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought about the same thing when I was watching like Clarence with the Apostles all the time. And I was kind of thinking like, okay, they're kind of arrogant. Like, I felt like, and I also thought like if Jesus was here, I feel like he would accept the guy, because anyone who comes should be welcome, right? That's sort of like the golden rule of religion. And, kind of it doesn't really matter what they want at the end, but if they want to be Christians or if they want to be Muslims or whatever, they
Hmm.
are welcome. And it
Hmm.
doesn't really matter what they want it for.
Right, right,
So that was
exactly.
kind of like weird a little bit. Like I was like, these are cocky people.
Right. But no, that's a real thing that a lot of people go through. There's a lot of people that want to go to church, but they don't want people judging them. But so many people in church judge them, right? Like me, like I'm Muslim. I still identify as Muslim, but I know a lot of people would judge me because I drink, because I don't pray, because I, sometimes don't fast Mondays and Thursdays. I shave my mustache with a razor, all the stuff that you're not supposed to do as a Muslim. I eat with my left hand, but I
Wait,
don't want people to judge me and all that. You get what I'm saying?
what are you supposed to shave your mustache with?
You're supposed to clip it. You're not supposed to use a razor
Why?
because the Prophet said you're supposed to cut your mustache with like, you're not supposed to shave it. Shaving is haram in general.
Is there a reason?
It's because that's what the prophet said. There's no other
Oh,
reason than that's what the
okay.
prophet
This
said.
is why I can't be religious. But anyway, okay,
Anyway,
yeah, that's also like, but back to what you said, this is also why I can't be religious, because I feel like religion or faith or whatever you believe in should be between you and whatever you believe in.
mhm.
So I don't really like people who judge others and think of themselves as like pure, holy beings.
Right. Well, that's the big thing about Clarence because Clarence openly says he doesn't believe in God. He openly is an atheist in the deep, deep past, which is probably very taboo. And this is the first movie I've ever seen with an open black atheist as the main character, which is another deep thing to talk about. But I'm going to read this comment from the Violator. He says, "This movie sounds fire. It is from the same director that made the movie where the black guy sounds white. I believe, Violator, you're talking about the movie Black Klansman that features John Washington, the son of Denzel Washington. And that movie was actually directed by Spike Lee. So I think that's a different movie you're talking about, but I'm not exactly sure. Black Klansman is a great movie too, and I suggest it as well. We didn't review it, but it is a good film. So yeah, I forgot exactly where we were. Where were we in the story?
We were sort of talking about like gatekeeping religion a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
said like, oh, sorry, you said Clarence is like one of the first atheist, like openly atheist black characters in the main lead.
Yeah, I would say that atheism in the black community in general, and still in many parts of the world, regardless if you're black or white, is a big taboo, right? Just like it is in Turkey, right? Being an
Yeah,
open atheist in Turkey is very taboo. Would you say so?
of course.
Yeah. And so I used to be an atheist and I used to go to high school and argue with people there's no God and stuff like that. So I could relate to the character of Clarence a lot. And yeah, this is something that hasn't really been discussed a lot in the Black American community. And I definitely believe in the African community because many Africans, as we saw when we went to Africa, really love Jesus. They really love Islam. They really love whatever they believe in. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, I don't know like African American communities like you do, because I've never actually like lived with them because I didn't live in America. But um, when you said it like that, thinking about the portrayal of black actors, usually like most of them are Christians, and they are mostly portrayed as like kind of religious Christians.
mhm,
A little bit like I like you kind of always see the Christ necklaces and stuff like that,
mhm,
and or it's also in the language as well. So yeah, even in the portrayal, I can like see what you're talking about. Or if it's a Muslim movie, then they're also like very religiously Muslim
mhm,
as
mhm.
well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The general trend among black movies is to make black folks very religious, or at least religious in the sense that they do believe in God, at least. But there
Yeah.
hasn't, in my knowledge, a movie about an atheist black character. So that's why I think this movie is inventive. Matt Villani jumped into the comments. He said Black Klansman is good. I don't think he sounded white, but he did work with the KKK. And I'm going to show how old I am. I don't know what IIRC means. What does that mean? Actor, do you know?
IIRC.
Yeah, like an acronym. It's
I
like
don't
Gen Z
know. I
talk.
don't know what it means
I don't know
either.
either. Matt Villani explained, but yeah, Black Klansman was a very good movie. But moving forward, let's move forward in the story. So basically, Clarence, gets high with his homie Elijah and stuff, and he says, "I'm going to become the 13th apostle of Jesus," right? And a light bulb literally comes in front of his head, and Elijah says, "You're crazy," but Elijah comes with him anyway, as Clarence goes to meet with the 12 apostles of Jesus at the 12 apostle hangout, and he shows up there, and he tells the apostles, "I want to join you. I want to become the 13th," and they all burst out laughing, like they all
Yeah.
laugh at him together. And yeah, one guy comes out though with a bald head, and I hate when they make bald black men the enemy because I'm a bald black man, but I'm not.
Come on, there were plenty of bald black men.
No, man, most of the good guys had hair, but the one bad guy had to be bald. What is that? No,
Sorry.
they were throwing shade. They were throwing shade
I
at
know
me.
you wanted Jesus to be bald.
That'd have been hard. That would have been
Jesus had
hard.
a full head of hair.
He had a full head of hair, nice locks, nice little
Yeah.
locks. So Matt Villani jumped into the comments. He said, "If I recall correctly," and I'm much older than you guys. Just saying. Okay. Oh man, thank you for reminding me, Matt Villani. I didn't know what that acronym meant. But yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, Judas comes out. Judas is played by I don't know who exactly, but he did really well. Like and
It's Michael Ward.
Michael Ward played Judas, right?
Yeah.
And keep in mind the whole cast is black. This is very interesting, but there are some white people in the story. And I believe we skipped over this part that we do see the first white folks that show up in this movie, and they're played by the Romans. All the
Mhm.
Romans, like all the like soldiers and stuff, they're all played by white guys, right? And there was a scene where Clarence is facing the folks, and they like say that they fit the description, right, and stuff like that. And yeah, it was funny because they pulled out a picture of a black guy who's dressed like King Tut, like with the Egyptian headscarf and stuff like that. And that was funny. What did you think of that scene? We're kind of jumping all over the place, but what did you think of
Yeah.
that scene?
I mean, the movie is kind of like there are a lot of different scenes. Like,
Hmm.
there are a lot of different cuts. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell or organize it in your mind. But I mean, that scene was funny because they made it funny, but then also like in the back of your head, you do still think like, oh, like police brutality a little bit as well, or like, just police questioning, today, like just random people just because they're black and they didn't do anything. And you do like kind of, I mean, at least I thought of that, but I didn't think of it like deeply because it was a funny scene
Yeah,
in
yeah,
general.
yeah. Just that was a funny scene overall. But getting back to it, Judas tells Clarence that if you want to join us, the 13th apostles, go to this guy who owns a bunch of slaves. His name is Arash the torturer.
Asher.
Asher the torturer. He owns a bunch of gladiator slaves, and I want you to go there, Clarence, and free all of them. And if you bring all the slaves back and they're free, you can join us, right? So Clarence is like, I'll do it. And Clarence goes to Arash's like place where he has all of his gladiators fighting with like wooden swords. And him and Elijah come there and say, Arash, can you please free your slaves so you can free your conscience? And Arash tells his slaves, Arash tells his slaves, if you beat this man to death, I will free you all. What did you think of Arash the terror, the torturer? Because I thought he was actually a really cool character. He was very funny. What did you think?
Yeah, he was a pretty good character. Again, once again, good, very good acting. All of the acting was pretty good in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked his like costume, or I guess like makeup, because
Hmm.
he had like half of his face white, which
Hmm.
was like a cool visual. At the same time, it was like symbolism as well.
Hmm.
So that was dope. I liked him, and I liked his character.
Yeah, yeah. Arash the Torturer definitely had one of the best, masks, makeups I've ever seen. So the slaves are about to beat up. They're about to beat up Clarence, but then Arash says, "Stop! This isn't fair." So what I'll have you do, Clarence, is if you can beat my biggest, toughest gladiator, his name is Barbarus the Immortal. If you can beat him in a fight, then I will free him, and you can have him, right? And so Clarence puts on a mask that looks like the mask from Gladiator, the movie with Russell Crowe. Goes into the ring, and he's like, "Where's Barbarus?" And then they let Barbarus out of the cage, and it's like, "Oh God, this guy is huge. He looks menacing." You get
He's
what I'm saying?
actually he's played by Omar Sy, the guy
Uh,
who was in Lupin.
I didn't see Lupin. Did you see it?
No, but I saw it. But then I don't know if you saw. He's French, and I saw the French movie that he did called The Intouchables.
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw that one, but
No.
yeah, he's also like a pretty famous actor,
Okay, okay. So
I think.
Omar Sy plays Barbarus, the gladiator's former slave and stuff like that. And apparently, Barbarus was a freedom fighter. Like he was like Spartacus. He wanted to defeat Rome. He wanted to be like the person that kicks the Romans out of the Middle East and frees his people, right? But I guess somewhere along the way, he got captured, put into slavery, and made to be a gladiator because he's so big and strong. So that was interesting. I like that that they made this character like this because the real Barbarus in history was the criminal who was supposed to be a murderer, and the people were asked, "Who do you want to free, Jesus or Barbarus?" And the people said, "Free Barbarus, kill Jesus." Right? And so it was interesting how they took that character and made him something different, and I thought that was cool. It
Yeah, I
was,
definitely loved like Barbaros's character.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Jumping forward now. So Clarence and Barbarus have a big fight in the arena amongst all the gladiator slaves. And actually, this is part maybe I didn't like. I didn't like that Clarence could fight so well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they kind of explained it a little bit afterwards,
Hmm.
but it was like not that believable, honestly. Because
Hmm.
like, how are you going to be the best gladiator when
Yeah,
you're just like sort of like a skinny guy? I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. By the way, Matt Villainy jumped into the comments. He said MF Doom's mask was modeled after the Gladiator mask too. Yep, that's absolutely true. His original mask was like made after Doctor Doom, but because of copyright reasons, MF Doom switched it to like the Gladiator mask from Maximus or whatever, and it was very cool, very cool. I'm almost finished writing the MF Doom. I'm just writing the review for the mask, the mouse in the mask, and then I got to edit it, and then it's done. So looking forward to y'all seeing that on Culturalist Theory. So go check out that channel. But yeah, the fight scene that happens between Clarence and Barbarus is fun, but it's almost unbelievable because Clarence is like whooping this guy's ass a little bit, who's supposed to be immortal. But he eventually wins the fight, and yeah, Barbarus, no, Arash that says, "Okay, you can take Barbarus, but I'm not going to let you have my other slaves," right? And Barbarus says, "Let my people go, let me be free." And doesn't Arash's words have any meaning? Does he not speak truth? And eventually Arash lets them go and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
I mean, he just lets Barbaros and Clarence go,
yeah, he lets
not the
Barbarus.
other slaves.
Yeah, not the other slaves, right? So Barbarus, Elijah, and what's his name? How can I say this? Clarence.
Clarence.
Yeah, man. I don't know why I'm tripping. I don't know why I'm tripping. They go back to the house with the apostles, and Judas is like very proud and stuff like that. But they still won't let Clarence join. And I forgot the exact reason they won't let Clarence join. Do you remember why?
Oh God. I think it was because of his brother, twin brother,
Hmm.
because yeah, like he wanted to talk to him, and I think he was sort of telling other apostles that they like he shouldn't be allowed, Clarence shouldn't be allowed, and they have this conversation there, and yeah, his twin brother was sort of like, you're doomed to be a failure. You will never be someone important. You'll never be like worthy of Jesus. You'll never be an apostle. So just like go and just don't be here and stuff like that. And of course, Clarence is again saying like, you left my mother and me. I didn't do anything to you. You left us, and now
Mhm.
you think like you're so special. And he kind of like again, Clarence gets mad at like Jesus and God, and he thinks they're all like fake liar people,
Yeah.
basically.
He makes this big speech in front of the apostles after he has this fight with his brother and says there's two types of people that believe and people that know. And the difference is I know God isn't real. And therefore that makes all of you, all of the apostles, liars, if not fools and stuff like that. And the apostles try to say, calm down. And he's like, let's go. So him, Barbarous, and Elijah leave. They're in the chariots. And one of the funniest things is that Barbarous is saying like, I want to free my people. I don't want to say any negative words about my people. That's why I don't say niga. That's why I don't say negro. I don't say anything bad about my people. We are kings. And then while he's speaking in the back of this taxi that they're riding in, Clarence gets another light bulb above his head, and he tells everybody, "I'm going to be the new Messiah." And then Barbara says, "What, nigga? Are you crazy?" I really like that scene. I thought it was really cool. That was funny.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's
yeah,
it's really nice. Like once again, there are subtle lessons here and there,
mhm,
and it's like kind of mashed with comedy, which
yeah,
is pretty dope.
yeah. Very, very. A lot of comedy mixed in with a lot of commentary. And so
Yeah,
I think that's the beginning of book two or chapter two in the book of Clarence, which is
yeah.
the Messiah stage.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
sorry, but right before we go into this, for me, this was like where the movie started to become really like, just how do I say this? Really like I wanted to really watch this movie after this part, like chapter 2, the new Messiah,
Hmm.
because the first part was sort of like an introduction. It was a little long,
Hmm.
but there were like it was the most funniest part and stuff like that. So yeah, like after that first chapter it becomes more serious. It sort of like reels you in more, I
Hmm.
would say, than the first parts.
Yeah, I would say the first part to me wasn't very long. It did a good job of world building, creating the characters, putting some depth, motivation behind the characters. So I didn't feel like it was long. But I'm biased. I'm black.
No, it's a movie, it's not about that.
I'm biased. I'm biased to like this movie a little bit. A
Okay,
little bit.
okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, moving forward. So Clarence, Elijah, Barbarous, and also the taxi driver, who I forgot his name. Do you remember his name?
Let's see.
No,
No.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So basically, they form like a four-man crew. And Clarence says, "This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be like Jesus. Jesus goes around telling people these stories and speaking in parables and doing tricks and doing magic. I can learn magic. I can learn his tricks. I'll tell people I'm the Messiah. Elijah, you pretend like you're blind and I'll cure you. Barbarous, you pretend like you're dead and I'll raise you up. We can do all of these miracles and make a ton of money, just like how Jesus makes it.
Oh, it was, I think it was Zeke, right?
Yeah, something like
The
that. Okay.
taxi driver.
Yeah. Anyway, he forms this crew, tells them we're going to do these tricks. But first, Clarence has to meet Jesus' mother. He has to meet Mary. And so he sits down with Mary, the Holy Virgin Mary, at his house so he can try to learn Jesus' story, right? And Mary is played by Alfre Woodard. Alfre Woodard is like, how can I say this? Who was the black actress in who's in every great movie?
What?
The black actress that was in Waiting to Exhale. You said you wanted to lick her toes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh God, you made me forget her name.
She played Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do
Angela
with It.
Bassett. Angela
Yeah,
Bassett.
Alfre Woodard is like a step below Angela Bassett, but just as talented. But she's just not Angela Bassett. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Alfre Woodard plays the Virgin Mary. Clarence sits down with Mary and Joseph at his house, and Clarence is like, "Tell me about Jesus." And Alfre and Mary is like, "Yeah, I was a virgin. I was a virgin, and I had this baby." And he still doesn't believe. Like Joseph is there and everything. What do you think of that scene?
I thought that scene was pretty funny, honestly,
Mhm.
because it was like, yeah, like she Clarence was saying to Joseph, like, and you believe this? That was just like sort of hilarious way of questioning, Jesus and God and religion. And it was also relatable because I ask the same questions to myself. Like, obviously, I don't question, like, if Mary was virgin, but I was like, why was she virgin or how come like that happened and things like that. So that was relatable. That was funny. I really liked that scene.
Yeah, yeah. Because Clarence is like, "Bruh, your wife said she was a virgin when she got pregnant. Bruh, come on now, come on."
Yeah. And then like Mary gets angry and slaps him and stuff like that. That was just
Yeah.
hilarious.
There was a lot of slapping in this movie, like a
Yeah.
lot of like Nigerian slaps. Like everybody was getting slapped. And so yeah, Clarence leaves Mary's house, and yeah, he starts preaching. He starts preaching to people that knowledge is better than faith. Knowledge is more important than religion, essentially. So he's preaching like sort of like a non-religious religion. He's not telling people about God. He's just telling people he's the Messiah, right? And so he goes from town to town, like having Elijah pretend like he's blind and Barbarous pretending like he's crippled. And when other people in the city come up and approach him and say, "Can you cure me?" Clarence says like, "Nope, nope, sorry. God can only do one miracle a day," and stuff like that. uh, and I thought that was interesting because I think that part of the movie is sort of symbolic of like how people today use Jesus's name to make themselves rich. Like all the mega church pastors, all the people that get very rich speaking about any sort of religion. It's
Mm.
like Clarence was doing the same, using Jesus's name to make himself wealthy. What did you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, while I was watching, I didn't think what you thought. I was thinking more like how easy kind of it is to fool people, or not exactly fool people, but I mean, yeah, in this case, fool people, but then also like how sort of people are really like just attracted to these sort of things, like religion and things like that, that
Mm-hmm.
they just really want to believe in something supernatural or something more powerful than themselves, which
Mm-hmm.
is like, I get it. That's, yeah,
Yeah.
very understandable. So I was thinking about sort of like that, sheep mentality a little bit, and, how it's kind of, you just have to be sort of charismatic, and you have to do a few tricks, and then you will have a bunch of followers.
Yeah, yeah. It also made me think like in the beginning when Clarence was preaching like knowledge is bigger than faith, nobody listened. But when he started doing like miracles and just tricks for people, then that's when he got followers, which I think goes to show like people really don't care about information, knowledge, science. What people want is to be entertained and to believe. So I
Yeah.
believe like Clarence was taking advantage of that, people's desire to want to believe in something, which is why religion is so big because he really wasn't gaining followers until he did the tricks and stuff to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, yeah. All right. Moving forward, he does so many of these sermons, and people start believing in him that he makes a ton of money, like a bunch of silver. And there's so much money now that he can pay back Jedediah the Terrible, and also buy his mama house, give some to his friends. He's rich now, hella rich. And it's like classic montage. Like this movie is like very innovative in the story it wants to tell, but very conventional in how it tells that story because it's very guy wants the girl. We've seen a
Hmm.
ton of movies where the guy is trying to do whatever it takes to make money, and then there's that big success scene, like in Scarface, when Scarface is buying like the White Tiger and the speedboats and stuff like that. There's that same scene when Clarence is making all this money and now he can do whatever he wants with it. And what does he do when he gets that money? Tell us, Ackley.
Yeah, so when he gets the money, okay, so this part was a bit confusing for me because when they first, like their first gain, they counted, and like you said, they can pay the debt, they can buy the house for the mother, and all of that. So I was like, why isn't he doing it? Like, why isn't he paying his debt? And then we have like another montage, a shorter one, and then he decides that he's going to free the slaves with the money. But I was like, okay, like that is very noble, but I don't know. I think, okay, maybe I'm confusing it. I think he decided to free the slaves after he confronted his brother, right? Or no?
Yeah, so his brother comes to him after he becomes a very famous and successful fake messiah. So Thomas comes to Clarence and says, "What you're doing is wrong." And Thomas and Clarence is like, "No, what you did was wrong. You abandoned me. You abandoned your mother for this man that you follow, who's not a messiah." Because at this point, Clarence does not believe in Jesus or anything like that. And he says, "You continue following your fake messiah, and I'll continue being a fake messiah too, and doing what I want to do." And yeah, that's basically that. But at the same time, Clarence is saying this to his brother. I believe he was having like a change of heart. He
Yeah,
knew that something was wrong with what he was doing, and so something was motivating him to actually do something well. So I think he wanted to prove to his brother that he actually is greater than his Messiah because he does take his money to free the slaves, right? And
yeah.
also at the same time, he felt very bad about tricking people too. So he takes his money and goes to free the slaves from Arash the Terrible. They're all happy and excited and stuff like that. And basically now he's sort of left with nothing, but he's still very powerful and famous.
I think,
What you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it wasn't like, it didn't feel like, oh, all of a sudden he wanted to believe in God or anything, but it was more like he was feeling sad that he was doing this to his own people, Like, just like you said. And there was like, he sort of like became this, like, very humble, mysterious Messiah person himself. And we also see him like speaking to himself in the mirror or telling himself, who have I become? Like, what am I doing? I'm telling like all these lies to people, but I don't know what I'm doing actually. And then also when he freed the slaves, the guy, what was his name? Asher, the torturer. He tells him like, your name is gonna be in the history, written in the history or something. And
Mm-hmm.
he says like, don't tell them my name. So
Mm-hmm.
he sort of like becomes this humble personality, much like Jesus at
Mm-hmm.
this point. And but he's not doing it for a religious reason. He's doing it because he knows it's wrong. He knows it's not moral. And I think at that point I felt like he sort of became like Jesus of morality, like the Messiah of morality or humanity, and not
Right.
God.
Right, right. I think in the movie, Clarence has a big hatred for slavery because when he first goes to Arash's house, he says, how can people do this to each other and stuff like that. So I think the movie sort of bleeds into its roots in like the African American tradition because we have a big aversion to slavery. So even putting that in the movie, any black character is going to say free the slaves,
Yeah.
automatically, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's why another motivation was for him to do this. And I also think that Clarence buying the freedom of slavery is representative of some people's idea that, why do we wait for Jesus to free us when we can do things to free ourselves? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Sort of like that, that Jay-Z mentality. Why try to, petition these people to let us in when we can make our own industries, we can make our own businesses, we
yeah.
don't have to beg to get in. You get what I'm saying? And I think the movie plays with these two ideas a lot, that what is real power? Is power God's power, or does man really have power to make things better on earth? And I think that's one of the things with buying the freedom of slaves was meant to do. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like I am not a religious person, but I very, very strongly believe in like just doing the good thing. And that's sort of been just like my religion in a way, a little bit, because I do believe like, yeah, if you do good things, then they will come to you, and at least your conscience will be clear. Just
Hmm.
like, how Clarence wanted the torturer's conscience to be clear. So
Right.
I definitely like get that part, and maybe that's why also I liked this movie, and those parts were with Clarence were very relatable to me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, moving forward, basically, Clarence is still very popular and stuff like that. There's a scene later when he like goes to the nightclub and something like that, and Verinia is there. And oh, actually, no, I think I skipped the part. I think I skipped the part. No, did I? Anyway, he goes to
No,
like
I
he
don't
goes
think
to.
so.
I was thinking about the part when he met up with Verinia and they were talking in the street. But anyway, he meets up with Verinia at like some club late at night, and there's a very cool dance
Yeah,
scene.
that was before this one,
Okay.
because they're okay. So after freeing the slaves, he goes to Valeria's houses, like near her house, and he says like, "Can we talk?" And Valeria's like, "What is this? All this Messiah stuff that's going on? Like, I heard you walked on water. Is that true or something?" And he's like, "I can't even swim."
Which is funny in of itself because
Yeah.
stereotype black people can't swim. So
Yeah, yeah. That's like once again there are like all these subtle like messages,
mhm.
and yeah, they start to talk, and Lakeith is like, Clarence is like, I've changed a lot. He's sort of like, now you can be with me a little bit, but then he also has this shame of what he did, so he still thinks he's not good enough for the girl.
Mhm.
And he says, you're taken, aren't you? Since you don't want to be with me now that I'm like this leader type of person, you're taken.
Mhm.
And she said she doesn't really say anything. She doesn't answer him. She doesn't say no, yes, but he asks her to meet him like that night.
Mhm.
And there's also another scene that happens in between them. So yeah, they're gonna meet at night, but at the same time, we see Elijah, and he hears a scream, and it's like a lady screaming, and then he goes up where the scream is, and we see Mary Magdalene, which is played by Tiana Taylor, and she's like in chains, and she's like bleeding and stuff like that, and people are basically stoning her. And then he's like, what is happening? Like, what did she do? And they say that she had sexes with Romans.
Sexist.
Yeah, that's what they say. And then he tries to protect her. They keep on throwing stones at them, and he's like covering for her. And then all of a sudden, Jesus appears, and this is also the first time we see Jesus in the movie, like his face. We see him for the first time, and yeah, he
By the
takes
way,
off.
Jesus is played by a guy named Nicholas Pinnock.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
he's
very
also
dope.
really good, and like a really good actor. And so yeah, Jesus stops the stones, and he says like, what does this lady done again? She sexted, sexted. She sexed Romans. And he says like, okay, so how is that supposed to be a sin? Please, like, if any of you haven't committed a sin, then come forward and stone her and stuff like that. And he also says something like funny about the lady that was talking to him. I forgot what was her name.
Right. So the woman's name is Jezebel. Jesus asked the woman, "What's your name?" Jezebel. And no, 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 no. Jesus says, "Your name is Jezebel," and the woman says, "How do you know my name?" And Jesus says, "Don't worry, everybody's going to know your name soon enough."
Jezebel is like the devil, right?
Jezebel is a name for a whore.
Oh,
Because
okay.
Jezebel was like a very famous whore, I believe, of Babylon and stuff like
Yeah,
that in the Bible. So
yeah, but
that was super fun. I feel like that was one of the funniest jokes in the movie. Has so many like Bible jokes like that are just
yeah,
meant to be
it
caught.
was funny. Like, and then Jesus says, like, Jesus turns to her husband and says, "Lay off the horse. Like, don't stop fucking the horse." Something
No,
like that, like
no, he says
hinting
like
that.
stop smashing, lay off the donkey in
Yeah,
the.
some. And then she says, like, "I could smell it."
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that was like also funny. Like, even though it was a serious scene and it was like, a torture scene almost. Yeah, and then he basically saves them, and Mary Magdalene joins Jesus. Jesus says, "Come with me, Mary." And Elijah is now first for the first time witnessed Jesus's miracle.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then yeah,
So
the nighttime comes. But yeah,
right.
tell me.
So two things I want to say about the first scene when Clarence meets Valeria outside. Like the Romans are now hunting people in the city who are claiming to be messiahs because they got orders to kill any messiahs in the city. So there's that going on all around. And on top of that, Jedediah's like henchmen are like hunting Clarence. So when Jedediah meets with Valeria in the street, there's two guys named Goliath and Samson, which is a reference to two biblical figures who are like these big, strong men. So that was funny too, that these two,
Mm.
Goliath and Samson, are chasing Clarence through the street. And so they're chasing Clarence, but they don't catch him. Clarence hides in the chicken coop. And when he comes out of the kitchen coop, he sees a black man dressed up like an ancient Egyptian with a headpiece and all coming out of somebody's window after stealing something, in reference to earlier when the Romans showed a picture of the suspected suspect who's supposed to be robbing people. And the guy looks at Clarence and says, "Shh." which I thought was hilarious, which was very funny, very funny. That was a great scene. And also something else I want to say about the stoning scene of Mary Magdalene. That's one of the most famous biblical stories and stuff like that. Like everybody knows the phrase, "He who has not sinned cast the first stone." Like if you haven't done anything bad before, don't then you can judge somebody. Until then, shut the f up, right? And so I really like how James Samuels in his movies doesn't show black pain. Or at least he shows black pain in a reserved way, because it's very stereotypical and common for in movies to see black people getting beat on, whipped on, kicked on, spit on, shot, all sorts of stuff. But throughout this movie, and especially in that Mary Magdalene scene, we don't see Mary getting hit by a bunch of stones. We don't see a bunch of people just trying to kill her and stuff like that. And the same thing goes later in this movie when Clarence is crucified, when other people are killed, when they try to kill Barbarous and stuff like that. Like there's not this sort of black pain that's sort of defeating in this movie. It's sort
Yeah.
of like not shown on camera and it's reserved. You know it's there, but it doesn't have to be all in your face because we see that all the time. So I just want to say James Samuels is an excellent director on not putting that sort of imagery always in our face, which I want to salute him for that, for real, for real, for real,
Mm.
for real.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. And the same thing with, I would say, like over sexualization as well. I mean, it's kind of hard to, put sexuality in this movie because it is about Jesus. So, but there was a scene of like the, sort of like a strip club ish type of vibe. I don't know what's that called, but
The harem. What are you
the
talking
harem.
about? Are
Yeah,
you Turkish?
no, yeah, like the harem of the Jedidah. But yeah, even there, it wasn't like there wasn't women who were overly sexualized. There was that just one blue woman,
Hmm.
sort of.
Right.
But that's
Right.
his signature also.
Yeah. So yeah, moving forward, there's a club scene, late night dance party with all the people in the city, and they're doing like ancient Egyptian dance moves and stuff like that. Very cool. Once again, looks like a fire Beyonce video. I was waiting for Beyonce to come out anytime and just start like voguing or like doing
Wow.
doing the hieroglyphs dance. But yeah, Elijah meets up with Clarence and says, "You gotta listen to me. I saw Jesus. Jesus made the stone stop midair. He saved Mary Magdalene." And Clarence is like, "Shut up. What you saw was not real. It did not happen. Right? It's not true." And Elijah's like, "Okay, man, all right." And he's back with Clarence, but still he saw the miracle of Jesus and stuff like that. And then later on, the Jedediah comes and confronts Clarence and says, "Where's my money?" And it turns out that Valeria was sort of like the bait to get Clarence to come out. And I sort of knew it when Valeria came out with the same headpiece that Jedediah wears. And so Jedediah is like, "Give me my money now, or you're gonna die." And Clarence is like, "I don't have it." And Barbarous stands in front of him and says, "You're not, taking my homie," and stuff like that. Goliath and Samson try to fight Barbarous, but Barbarous is like, got them both in a headlock. And right before there's going to be like a big fight, the Romans come, and the Romans say, "We're here to arrest the Messiah named Clarence." And Barbarous says, "You're not going to do it," and he stands up to the Romans and stuff like that. One of the Roman guards tries to like stab him, but Barbarous like grabs the knife with both of his hands and like breaks it, which
It's a
was savage.
sword. It's
Yeah,
not a
like a
knife.
sword. Well, they were very tiny swords. They were like knives.
Okay. Jeez.
he, he breaks the sword, and then the Roman slaps him, but then Barbarous slaps him back, and he's offended he got slapped because he's like, "You only slap a woman, or only women slap," or something like that. And so yeah, what did you think of that? What did you think of that whole lead up?
It was interesting because I really didn't want it to like I didn't really want anything happening to Clarence because I was like at this point I was rooting for him and I didn't want like this old feud coming back and that would be the end of it basically.
Hmm.
So I liked that they just like changed it up and then the Romans showed up and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. And once again, I just loved Barbarous.
Yeah.
He was so cool.
Very cool, very cool, very strong figure, and it's good to see like a strong black man on camera like that. And so yeah, Barbarous is like trying to like live his life's duty, which is fighting the Romans at any cost, and he wants to like show the people he's very strong. And the Romans are like let's kill him, but Clarence tells Barbarous to like run away. And so the Romans start chasing him. The city is following what's happening too. And the lead Roman general is like, look at him. He's attacking me. He's threatening my life." And Clarence is like, "Dude, he's running away. He's running away from me. He's like 100 yards away or something like that." And the Roman is like, "Get my spear. I have to protect myself." And so Clarence tries to grab the spear, but the guards grab him. The Roman throws the guard. The Roman throws the spear, and it hits Barbarous in the shoulder. He keeps on running. He throws another spear. It hits Barbarous in the heel. And Barbarous says earlier that his heel is his weakness. So when
Yeah,
they
his
see
nickname is like Barbarous the Immortal or something.
yeah, they think he can't die. Barbarous claims he can't die. Everybody believes he can't die, but his one weakness is his heel. So when we see the spear hit his heel, you're watching the movie and you think, "Oh my God, Barbarous is about to die." And then another spear hits him like directly through the back. And so we think Barbarous is dead. One of the Romans comes up to try to pull the spear out of Barbarous, but Barbarous is still alive. He picks up the Roman by his neck and says, "Wrong heel, motherfucker," and like cracks his neck in half or something like that. And it's just a moment of like pure victory. And
Yeah.
once again, you have to. I commend James Samuels for just not falling to the trope of like you got to kill the biggest, strongest black man you can on camera. Like
Yeah.
he does a great job of like subverting all those narratives. Go ahead.
Also, like with the line, I think it was maybe a little salute to Samuel L. Jackson, a little bit, because that's iconic. But Anyway, yeah, what happens next? And I also like do really like that he didn't die because I loved his character and I kind of felt like he was gonna come back because he didn't fall to the ground. But
Hmm.
after like a little bit passed, I was like, oh, I guess he's dead. But then he came back and I was like, yay.
Yeah, yeah. It was a moment of victory and stuff like that. Barbarous like hobbles away, like he runs away into the night, and so then the Romans are like, "Well, time to take Clarence." And Jedediah is like, "No, you're not going to take him. Him and I got beef. We have problems, but he's a part of our community, and I refuse to let you take him." The Romans are like, the Romans show their racism right here because this is the part that's maybe a bit on the nose and very like clear. There's this like big, debate between Jedediah representing like the Black Hebrews here, and then the Roman general who's representing like white power, white supremacy. And so, the Roman general says, I hate you. I hate all of your sunburnt people who are, basking in poverty and ignorance. And Jedediah is like, you really just hate us because you're fearful of us. You're weak men. And deep down inside, you feel inferior next to us and stuff like that. And the Roman is like, knowledge is a powerful thing. You might think you're smart, but I have the knowledge that if I kill your sister right here, you're going to bow down to me and stuff like that. And so they take Clarence. And, Jedediah is like, oh, shit, I guess I did get sunned right there. But yeah, what'd you think of that scene?
I mean, it might be in your face, the speech, but I definitely thought that it was a beautiful speech, no matter like how in your face it was. And at the same time, like, yes, maybe the major audience of this movie might be Black Americans or Black people in general, but also a lot of movies are consumed by white people too. So I think, maybe it's okay to put some in your face message in the movies. Not
Right.
everything has to be like just hidden symbols and stuff like that. And overall, I just really thought it was a beautiful speech because he was saying like stuff like, even though you have everything in the world, you are the most powerful person. You're still jealous of our joy, of our strength, and stuff like that. Which was,
Yeah.
I thought that was a really like dope speech.
Hmm. I think it was good to see Jedediah turn from like this villain in the movie to a hero. And I think sort of like that's how, Jesus is supposed to inspire us to be, not so thinking of ourselves, not so selfish, like be selfless. Because when Jedediah sees how the Romans treat Barbarous, he sees that they would treat him that way too if they really thought he was a threat or
Yeah,
he was an enemy. And the thing is, like, Barbarous's death or almost death or suffering is supposed to symbolize, in my opinion, the way, Jesus suffered and how it makes people think differently about themselves and about other people. And it also ties into the bigger thing, like, nowadays, when we hear about young Black men killed in the street, we don't, or at least the dominant society doesn't see, themselves. You know what I mean? And
hmm,
that's the way, we should see other people because Jesus came from the very bottom of his society. And, nobody would identify with Jesus today if you're a part of, the upper class. But, Barbarous's death is supposed to move you the same way Jesus's death is supposed to move you, even though Barbarous didn't die, if that makes sense. You get what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, definitely. Like I just thought that whole scene was just beautiful. It doesn't have to be like too complex for something to be beautiful. And it was also like Black solidarity as well because
Hmm.
nobody snitched on anybody.
Yeah.
Because maybe I was thinking, I don't know. At first, I thought maybe Jedidah was doing like work with the Romans. Like he was, I don't know, like the Romans were giving him money for him to do their dirty work or something, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of snitching, throughout the whole movie, Judas is in the background getting like silver from the Romans and saying, "Yep, that's Clarence. He's the new Messiah. Let me show you where Jesus is. That's the old Messiah." Like Judas is
Yeah.
doing like real shady, stuff behind the scenes, and there are different parts where he pops up. But basically, Clarence is brought in front of the Roman general who is Pontius Pilate. I don't know who plays him, but he has a ton of eyeliner, and yeah, Clarence is brought in front of the crowd and the Roman general, and he says, I'm a fake Messiah. I'm not the real Messiah. This was all a big, ruse, just trying to get the girl that I really want, but she didn't want me at the end and stuff like that. I was just a man who's lied and stolen all his life. I sold drugs, but I'm not the Messiah. So please don't kill me. And the Roman general is like, okay, you didn't get the girl. You're not the Messiah, but you are a drug dealer and you are a liar. So that does mean that you do deserve to die. And he's like, damn, I guess that's true. And so
But
the
then he also doesn't believe that too, because at the same time, people in the background are saying like, "No, he's the Messiah" and stuff like that. So he said that, yes, but then
Mhm.
he was like, "But I still think you're still trying to cover up, and you're like you're gonna go back and cause a riot
Yeah.
for the Romans."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, Pontius Pilate takes Clarence to this big tub of water and says, if you can walk across this water into my arms, then I will let you go. But if you drown, you drown and you're free.
Yeah.
So Clarence is like, I can't walk on water. I can't even swim again. And the crowd is like looking at him, and Clarence thinks he's not going to do it, but then he starts walking on water, and it's actually a very interesting scene. It was very good how it happens because he can't believe it, and this is the moment I believe Clarence finally believes in God. Pontius Pilate is like telling his guards, get him, but all of them jump into the water and they start flailing around. They can't get him and stuff like that. And Clarence says, no. Pontius Pilate says, "If I wasn't going to let you drown, but since you walked on water, now I have to kill you." which is kind of ironic in a way how it turned out. What did you think of that when Clarence
Mm,
actually walked on water?
yeah, I don't think it's that ironic because like once again, the powers are really just not that powerful because they're afraid of everything that might take away their power a little bit.
Hmm.
Just like how they are afraid of black people in this movie that they might cause a riot or something like that, where in reality, like that village with all the black people, Jerusalem in the movie was like sort of nothing when compared to the Roman Empire, right?
Hmm.
So it's like same thing with Jesus. Like they see someone who is actually powerful, who can change things or who can accomplish something, and they're threatened by it, so they have to kill him. They have to crucify him.
Hmm.
So yes, it is ironic, but it serves a purpose because we see that that was his idea to begin with. He
Right.
was gonna die either way.
You said it better than I could say it. That's exactly what I wanted to say. I just didn't know how to say it. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly. Like the powers are scared of the more powerful things. And so the supernatural has to be eliminated, right? And also another thing, Pontius Pilate was saying the entire time, I don't believe in your gods. You live these miserable lives and you have to believe in these gods. He's yelling this to the crowd. And so, yeah, when a god actually does appear in front of them, he does have to kill it because God is Rome in his eyes. And he wants God to be Rome in their eyes too. So yeah, basically the next scene is Jesus having the Last Supper with Mary Magdalene and all of the apostles there, and Jesus tells everybody, "Somebody sold me out. I know who did it, but the person that eats from Mary's plate with
Mary's
gravy,
gravy.
yeah, Mary's gravy with their bread is the person who did it." And the apostles are like, "Ah!" They start going crazy, and then Jesus freezes the entire scene. Right? He freezes everybody in place, like the mannequin challenge, and yeah, that was interesting because the scene then looks like the Last Supper, like the
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci painting, and you know the person that is forced to confess because everything is frozen is Judas. And what did you think about that?
I just loved the cinematography in the scene, like how everyone froze, and
Mhm.
I couldn't tell if it was Jesus freezing them or if it was like just the scene pausing or like slow motion or something like that. And then as that was happening, the camera came down, and then we saw this Leonardo da Vinci depiction appear in our eyes. And yes, like we could guess that it was the Last Supper, but it's also like nice to see that depiction. And I just like loved the cinematography in the scene.
Yeah, yeah. I also thought it was funny how even though the movie was getting progressively closer to the darkest part of the movie, the death of Jesus and the death of Clarence, they still found time for humor because Judas is like forced to grab bread and put it in Mary's bowl, but he's saying the entire time, "I don't want to do it because I hate Mary's cooking." Mary's cooking, she uses too much garlic, and he puts the bread in his mouth, and then he says, "You know what? It's the gravy. The gravy cancels the garlic." I thought that was pretty funny. It was cute. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Like they never went too long without some humor
yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah, yeah. And so moving forward, Clarence gets pulled back in front of Pontius Pilate, and Pontius Pilate says, "Look, man, we know you're not the Messiah. You're just a placeholder until we find the real guy, Jesus. How about this? You tell us where Jesus is, and we'll give you some money." And Clarence says, "Give me 2,000 shekels." And Pontius Pilate is like, no." And so then Clarence tries to trick him and says, Jesus is not the real Messiah. It's a guy named Judas. I'll tell you, Judas is the one that's really pulling all the strings. And Pontius tells him, "No, we've been working with Judas all along. Like, so don't try to do this." And so then Clarence says, "I'm not going to give up Jesus no matter what." And he's like, "Even if you die?" And he's like, "Even if I die." And so then he says,
And yeah,
"Yeah."
it was also like nice in the scene because the he said like, "Are you the Roman guy?" He said, "Are you really gonna die? Like, are you really gonna just give up your life for this guy who's a fake messiah or something like that?" And then Clarence says like, "I wouldn't give up on him even if he was a beggar." So I feel
Mm,
like even at this point where he walked on water, literally, he still did it because of morality, and that's why I felt like he was the messiah of morality, messiah of black justice, messiah
right.
of justice overall.
Hmm.
So yeah, like even then, he didn't say, "Oh, I'm not gonna rat him out because he's Jesus and he made me walk on water." But it was just like his what it was because of the lessons he learned. You know,
Now,
I like that.
I would disagree with you there because when Clarence says, even if he was a beggar, there was a beggar at the beginning of the movie and also at different parts who asked Clarence, "Give me some money, please." And Clarence never gave him money. And, Clarence's morality is really only shown when, he sort of is in a tight situation and has to do good things for other people. If I really break it down, I really think he freed the slaves just because he wanted to have soldiers that might back him up just in case Jedediah tried to kill him. So he could say, okay, he's going to send his goons, but I got my goons now. So that's what I was
Mm,
thinking. I really don't see, Clarence being a truly moral character.
no, because he wasn't in the beginning, but I think he developed into that person
Mm,
who's moral. Yeah, like he didn't give anything to the beggar in the beginning, but I think in his heart he was in the right place all the time, but he just like wasn't in the right mindset then because he was unfortunate, he was poor, he didn't have the girl that he loved and stuff like that, so he didn't uh, you know, practice his morality basically, which is like what most poor people go through, and then they're labeled as bad people.
Mm.
But I think later on, as he became richer, he became more moral instead of being more, selfish.
I would disagree with that because really the only good thing that he does is free the slaves and not give up Jesus. And I feel like he only did that really for selfish reasons. Number one, like I said, to protect himself from Jedediah. And then number two, maybe to protect his brother. Because even though he had beef with his brother, he wasn't going to give up Jesus because he knew that the Romans would then find his brother too and maybe kill him as well. So that's my opinion.
I don't know. I saw it like that. Like, yeah, he made some mistakes and stuff like that, but overall, I thought he did like just lead with his heart.
Mm.
I don't know.
All right. So then moving forward, what happens next? I believe Jesus tells his apostles, like, I'm going to die. Judas sold me out for 30 pieces of silver. And, this is just what it's going to be. The apostles are crying. Judas is going crazy, in his mind after he gets the money from the Romans and stuff like that. Then we see Clarence being forced to carry the cross through the city while getting whipped on by the Romans and stuff like that. Oh, no, I skipped ahead. I skipped ahead to one of the most important parts, which I think is the most interesting part of this movie, when Jesus meets Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, yeah, that was hilarious.
So basically, Jesus is walking through the city. The black Jesus is walking through the city, and he meets the beggar who was at the beginning of the movie, whose skin is covered in black, right? And the man asks him for money. Jesus puts his hand on his palm and makes his palm shoot out coins. His palms cannot stop producing money. So now the man's rich, right? The man then goes to the cosmetology place where Valeria works and says, "Excuse me, ladies, I want to get clean." And they say, "We can rebuild him like $1 million man." So they give him a manicure, pedicure, facial, everything. They clean him up really nicely. And then he comes out of the cosmetology studio, and all the women there, all the black women, all the African black women say, "He looks like Jesus."
It was really funny.
And we realize that the homeless man was actually Benedict Cumberbatch in blackface the entire time.
It wasn't blackface. And also, what was funny is like when one of the African ladies says, "It's Jesus," or he looks exactly like Jesus or something. Variana says, "You didn't even see Jesus." And the
Mm,
lady says, "I don't know. It just feels pure and white and clean," or something
mm,
like that. And then
mm.
Jesus walks out and is like a little pony. He's like a little pony, like skipping around, giving money to people, and all of the people are impressed, and they're like, "Oh my God, Jesus, Jesus," and stuff like that. I don't know. They
I,
they they feel like he's holy or something.
Right. I thought that was a very, very deep, deep scene. Okay. So the lady says, "You've never even seen Jesus," right? That's the
Yeah.
same thing today. Most people have not seen Jesus. They've just seen a picture of Jesus, right? So this woman knows Jesus exists somewhere in her city, but hasn't seen him, but has the image of him as a very clean, very pure person, and also white. And we have to remember that the word white does have the meaning in English of being pure, right? And so she's using the word in the same way, not saying that Jesus is actually, white skinned, European, Caucasian, whatever, but pure, white as in pure, right? And
Mhm.
that's deep. That's actually deep. He's so pure and clean now. He's like Jesus. And the interesting thing is, this homeless man was a minority in this town because he's like one of the few white folks in this town, right? Technically, he's like sort of like a homeless black man now today in like some major white city or something like that, right? But because Jesus gave him the money, black Jesus gave him the money to clean himself up, now he's seen just as good as Jesus, right? Just as, pure as Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And man, that's just so deep. It's just so deep. And I think it's also really interesting the fact that the people who cling to him first are like these, African sounding black women, which I believe is like, very symbolic of like what happens today still. Like a lot of grandmas, big mamas, your mama, they love them some Jesus. You know what I mean? They love Jesus. So I thought that was very, very interesting scene. Very, very deep. Very deep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's. I feel like it's unjust to say like, oh, like your grandmas love Jesus and stuff like that. Like, yes, they do, but then there's like also a lot of historical context to it, a lot of
Hmm.
like sort of historical brainwashing to it, like generations of just like putting that image onto their heads.
Right.
So yeah, like it's not really like Jesus. It's not really Black Jesus's fault that he
Hmm.
made a white guy rich.
Right.
And
Right.
so yeah, like, but I do agree that that was like just a great symbolism. It was funny. It was like satire. It was dark humor, and that
Hmm.
was just like perfect.
Yeah, it's also, how can I say this, sort of like, making the watcher, like as you're watching this movie, you're like, oh no, a white Jesus had to appear in this movie, right? Because we see the real black Jesus do all the miracles and stuff, but we know now that there's a white Jesus, maybe he's going to get all the credit for the stuff that
Yeah,
happens. And
yeah,
it's sort of like a moment in the movie. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And when white Jesus walks outside, and like you said, he's a pony, he's prancing around giving people money, the Romans see him and say, oh, there's another fake Messiah. And so now white Jesus is targeted to be killed too, and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we'll see that at the end.
Right. But you said earlier, like, it's not black Jesus' fault that white Jesus came to be. But I think, because in this movie, black Jesus knows the future, right? So he sort of knew that the rest of humanity was going to see, like, white Jesus as the Jesus, right?
Mhm.
Because at black Jesus' time, black people sort of like were kind of ruling the world, right? But in the future, maybe black Jesus knew that white people would rule the world and they would see themselves in that. And then so many things can be broken down into that. Like, why would black Jesus do that? I don't know. It's
I
so,
don't know if
so
black
deep.
people were ruling the world because Romans were ruling them.
Right. But there was still like black majority, like Middle East and stuff like that in this time,
Yeah,
right?
I guess, but I don't know. Like, isn't that part of religion? Like, you just accept the fate, and it's like you gain strength, and there's a reason why they're suffering and shit like
Hmm.
that. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know. That's not my argument, but that's like I feel like that's what religion tells most people.
Yeah, maybe Jesus knew that the Romans would only accept Christianity if they saw themselves in it.
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
Like he was. Are you saying like he was a smart leader?
Jesus, I guess so, man. I mean, he was a crazy
He was a
hippie.
good politician.
All right, so yeah. Anyway, now we're moving on to the part where Clarence is like getting whipped on through the streets, carrying the cross, just like Jesus and stuff like that. But the people who love him the most are on the sidelines in the crowd. His mother is there. Elijah is there. He's about to pull out the sword to try to attack the Romans. Clarence tells him, "No, don't do it." Barbarous is there. He tells him to like be strong. His mother is there, and Clarence tells his mother, "Hold space," meaning he always remembered like be important, be somebody who matters.
Hmm.
His mother then starts to scream like, "They always take our babies. They always kill our babies and stuff like that."
Hmm.
Cabbage, the gypsy, is there, and he helps try to carry the cross after Clarence falls down. It's a very powerful scene when Clarence carries the cross.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely immediately took me back to Passion of the Christ
Hmm.
because I was like, oh God, I'm about to go through this horror again of whipping and nailing and all of that. So
Hmm.
I was like sort of dreading it because just for personal reasons.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it was very emotional. Also, like Clarence's brother was even there and he was like with his mother and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And they do make it up at the end. Like he visits him while he's in prison and they say, like, I love you, forgive me, da da da. So they do make it up. And it's just very sad, just
Yeah.
I don't know, like the story itself is
Yeah. Yeah.
sad.
Yeah. By the way, Matt Villainy left a comment. He said, Do you all know why James Samuels is called the Bullets? I don't know why he's called the Bullets. I do know that was his band name, but I do know that James Samuels made all the music or the majority of the music for this movie. And I have to say, the music in this movie I think is very good, especially the last song that appears when we're going to cover that scene. But it's perfect for the very last scene of this movie. I think.
Yeah. I
What do you
also
think of the
really
music?
I also really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fitting to the movie because you have like fun, groovy, like songs where needed, and then you also have like sort of like these holy dramatic songs, and they have all of them, most of them have lyrics. So there's
Yeah.
also like meaning to every song that was made or picked for this movie. It's not
Yeah.
just a melody. It's not only for, building up tension or things like that, but you actually like there is meaning in the lyrics.
Right. Right. I
So that's
gotta
dope.
I gotta hear the soundtrack.
Yeah, definitely.
So, so yeah, Clarence gets crucified. They, nail him to the cross and stuff like that. You don't see the nails going through him, but it's there. The pain is on his face, and this was probably one of the hardest scenes to look at. And this is the scene
Yeah.
that made me realize that Lakeith was kind of the only person, the only black actor right now who could have played this role. And I have to say, this is by far his best role that he's done. It's much better than Judas and the Black Messiah. And I think part of me was thinking like, oh, the reason Lakeith Stanfield chose this role for this movie is because he was probably mad he was seen as like the traitor to all black people in Judas and the Black Messiah. So he was like, I got to be Jesus now because that's not sitting right with my soul. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. Did you?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, well, it's a very good movie too. Basically, he plays Judas in that movie, who
Mm.
portrays a very powerful figure. But yeah, when he gets nailed to the cross, it's very moving. But also, who gets nailed to the cross is white Jesus. So Clarence is giving one of his final speeches. He's saying like, "I'm sorry, I let you all here. I was a fake Messiah. I should have learned from my mistakes and learned my ways. But this is sort of like the punishment now." And then he tells the people, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And then white Jesus says, I got a prayer for you. Father, I hope you burn all these people in hell, fire and brimstone, preferably lava. And I thought that was brilliant because how do you make the crucifixion scene funny? Like, there's no way you could do that. But they
Yeah.
made it funny. And yeah, I thought that was cool. What do you think?
Yeah, that was pretty smart. And then also there, like we see, like he says, yeah, like burn them, kill them, and especially that guy who's painting me right now. And then
Mm,
we see like this guy who's painting the white Jesus,
mm,
and it's like another symbol of maybe, yeah, like it was false information. It is false information what we've been believing all these years,
mm,
that possibly logically Jesus was not this blonde-eyed, blue-haired. Sorry, I did it
mm,
again.
mm.
Blue-eyed, blonde-haired white man, and definitely like did not look like a German person.
Right, right, right.
So yeah, like once again there was that symbolism, and it was just like the lines were funny. And yeah, because the crucifixion scene, even though we don't see like the nails and stuff like that, it is like his face is all bruised up and bleeding and his eyes are like have blood, so it's very still gory and hard to look at. And they do keep the camera on Lakeith for a long time, so it's just like hard to look at a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it was nice that they put that humor there again.
Definitely, definitely. By the way, Matt Villainy jumped into the comments. He said, "Oh, I saw a crazy movie last night, Monolith. Review it. Definitely, we'll look into it. We got a lot of other big films, but that's on the list. Thank you for the suggestion. Any suggestions you send our way, especially from Violator or Matt Villainy, you guys have good taste. Send them our way. But yeah, how can I say this? I think you cried at the scene when Elijah comes up and looks at Clarence on the cross,
Yeah.
and Elijah doesn't want to look up at his friend because he feels ashamed. And I feel like Elijah felt ashamed because he was like, my friend is finally doing something honorable, and here I am. I'm not crucified with him. I feel guilty, but I've been riding with him, and what can I do to help him? What did you think about that scene?
Yeah, I don't know. That was just like very pure like sadness, you know. You can't do anything about it, just like you said. And the situation is so bad that you don't want to see anyone you love in that condition.
Hmm.
So that was just heartbreaking, and that's why I cried. And I also was thinking about my best friend, and I was thinking, what if I saw my best friend like, you know, on a cross like that? I would be devastated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking that too. So that's why I cried. It was very touching.
Yeah, definitely, definitely one of the best scenes right there. Also, after Elijah, comes up there, I think the Romans pierce Clarence with a spear in his side, just like Jesus did, and that's pretty much the end of his life. His mother is yelling at him, come back to me, Clarence, like find your way back to me, and that's sort of like the end of that scene. And so the final scene of this movie is beautiful, but I believe it's the worst scene in this movie, and it's sort of like how this, it sort of takes away a lot from the movie for me. Uh, because basically Jesus shows up to where Clarence died and brings him back to life. That's it. And he brings him back to life and says, Clarence, you didn't believe in God, but now you believe in me. And, now you know your ways. And Clarence is back to life. And that's
Yeah,
it.
I think, but there he also says like, you didn't believe in me, you didn't believe in God, but yet you freed those slaves.
Hmm.
And he also like says other stuff that he did, I think. And so that's why I think maybe it does support that. Yes, like he was sort of like the Messiah of, I'm not gonna say morality, but at least like human nature.
Hmm.
I don't know, like he was just like a more human version of Jesus.
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe that's what I should get out of it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Why didn't you like this scene?
I just hate when characters die and then they're just brought back to life just to make everybody feel happy and fuzzy inside, and which is how I felt the movie took it because there was more meaning in Clarence's death. And I think, with Clarence's death, it could have brought, like, it was a waste of Clarence being a twin of Thomas, right? Thomas's problem is that he left his mother to follow God, right? But with Clarence's death, he could have came back to his mother and that could have been him because, they're twins. They look exactly the same. So I was expecting, or I was hoping that there would be that reconciliation between Clarence's mom and her forgotten or prodigal son, Thomas, right? But bringing Clarence back to life, okay, now Clarence is back with his mom and his homies, and what Thomas is still away from his mother. You get what I'm saying? Like
He
there was
doesn't
a
have
wasted
to be.
opportunity.
He doesn't have to be. I mean, they made peace at the end, and he was holding his mother, like Thomas was holding his mother. So he doesn't have to do the same things again. I think he learned his lesson the first
Hmm.
time. He doesn't.
Hmm.
Yes, he might still follow Jesus, but he doesn't have to abandon them. And plus, now Clarence is gonna be following Jesus too, because
Right.
now he's aware of the miracles and stuff like that. But I don't know. I didn't hated it. Like, I mean, not. Yeah, I didn't think it was bad. Uh, yeah, like maybe coming back to life is a bit cheesy, but I thought it was like, it sort of said like, okay, so this was like a secret story that actually happened type of vibe. Like, I know it
Yeah.
didn't happen, but it was like, yeah, like, so this guy died before Jesus, and this was like the story, and Jesus brought him back to life, so that's why we never know about it.
Mm.
A
Mm.
little bit.
Yeah. It is
So
like it
like
is like
I can interpret it a little bit like that to make it make more sense.
Right. I mean, yeah, it is like a lost book in the Bible. It is like a story that could be real in the Bible, but maybe it was, forgotten in history or something like that, right? So it is, yeah, there is that opportunity for that to be the reason why Clarence came back to life. Like, this is how we know this story because he didn't die, right?
Hmm.
But in my opinion, I think it would have been better for, Clarence to die. And then we title the movie The Book of Elijah. Ah, see, this is Elijah's story now. So Elijah is actually the reason why he survived is because he can, tell the story about his friend. And the last scene we see, this is how I would have ended the movie. Elijah is writing the story of what happened to Clarence. He's now friends with Thomas because he reminds him of his lost friend Clarence. And now, Thomas is back with his mother, and also Barbaros is out there leading like a revolution or something like that. You get what I'm saying? And they all
Hmm.
become like Christians because they all do accept Jesus now, but they're using Jesus for something else. You get what I'm saying? Like, I thought that would have been a more subtle and interesting ending, and also using the idea of Clarence and Thomas being twins to full effect. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, that is a good ending. What you said is a good ending, but I feel like that would have been a bit too much because it is already a long movie, and I just feel like maybe it would have exhausted the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like the idea of what you said, but I don't know
Mhm.
about the execution of it.
Right. I mean, it didn't have to be long. It could have just been 5 minute montage and that's it, right? But
Oh, you want the montage, huh?
yeah, something like that. I don't know. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie. A lot of big themes, a lot of interesting characters, great cinematography. cinematography, great shooting. James Samuels is getting better as a director. Lakeith Stanfield is getting better as an actor. I'm really glad to see all of this happening in black films. And I do think it's a shame that this movie is not getting the love from critics it deserves or the attention from the public that it deserves. Because I think this is hands down probably one of the best movies we'll see this year, and it's in high contention for our Oscar awards that we're going to do end of year.
Yeah, I think it's underrated, and I think it's gonna be sort of, maybe, I don't know, a couple of years later, it's gonna be looked back on, and people like the movie holics, the movie addicts will realize that this movie is actually like sort of like a masterpiece a little bit, you
Mhm.
know. So I think it's underrated right now, but I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be like those movies that we slept on,
Yeah.
and later on we're gonna maybe know the value, and that's not a good thing, obviously. Like, I would love to see this movie in the awards shows and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't really, force people to watch stuff. So
Right. Well, it takes people like us talking about these films and getting
yeah.
people aware of them and recommending them because this is a movie that I could say I would want to see again. And I really hate watching
Hmm.
movies twice, but I would not mind watching this again because there was probably parts of it I missed. There are probably some other jokes or things in the background happening that I missed
Yeah.
over, and it is a entertaining and engaging watch. Matt Villainy left a comment. He says, "This reminds me of the Book of Eli. It's a good movie, and they're making a sequel soon. Be very interested to see a Book of Eli sequel." Did you see the original?
No.
Really? You never saw Book of Eli with
N-
Denzel?
no, I saw like 20 minutes of it in Turkish dubs because my stepfather was watching it.
Oh wow, great movie. That's an excellent movie. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but anyway, yeah, Book of Clarence, definitely recommend it. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. What do you give it?
I'm gonna give it an 8.
An 8. Okay.
Yes.
My problems with it are just the ending, and oh, really, that's it. That's it. My problem is really just the ending.
Okay.
What are your issues with it?
I mean, I don't necessarily hate any part of the movie. Like I said, I felt like the beginning is a bit of a slow burn, but after the first chapter, it really takes on a good speed and it reels you in.
Hmm.
So my problem is a little bit with the beginning. Not that it's not good, but it's just like it doesn't really match to the end of the movie or like the later parts of the movie.
I
I
got
feel
you.
like so that's, and also there are, I feel like, some loopholes in the story a little bit.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Got you. Got you. All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree, but overall, I'm really glad we watched this. You should watch it too if you're listening to this. Shout out to Mad Villainy for coming through. Shout out to Violator for coming through. And shout out to anybody who's going to watch this later or listen to this later. We appreciate all the people who've been supporting our movie reviews. Send more suggestions. Keep on listening, share, like, subscribe, all that, and peace.